Hey there guys, it's Joey, and I wanted to have a sort of a rambly type video where I'm just sort of talking out loud, and I'm going to call it Witch Love, I think, as in W-I-T-C-H. I'm talking a little bit about the vast subject of love and how it influences spiritual paths and feelings and things associated with it. I actually wrote a little something this morning, so I'm going to use that as a jumping off point and talk about some conceptions which I see a lot in the pagan community and the spiritual community, and I just wanted to talk about it, put my thoughts and feelings out there. So what I wrote went like this. Love is darkness, it does not require sight. Love is light, it illuminates from within. Love is natural and flows from earth, tree and sky. Love is astral, it is a home amongst the stars. So I've been musing around the concept of love all week because it is this week's Witchling. And I was sat here thinking, it hasn't been a particularly lovey-dovey week for me, and I was beginning to wonder whether or not it was just me being completely and utterly cynical, I guess, and if I had lost my belief in the overwhelming power of love and how it is just pure all the way through. Given my life, it's not a difficult thing to see why I would have come to that point. And I was musing over it and how to best phrase this video and talk about this vast, vast subject. So love is many things. It can be split up into many parts, many kinds of love. There's the love of the romantic kind of between partners. There's the love you have for your family and friends, or family that are not necessarily blood family. Love of animals and your home and nature and things that are sort of outside of people, I guess. Although technically your furry friends are people into their own right, but furry friends. And then there is sort of the divine love, the spiritual love, the energy of love that flows through the universe. So you get into thinking about how these things are so separated up. It's such a vast, difficult subject that it starts off being quite overwhelming. I was reading around quotes, and I think a lot of them are an oversimplification. There was one quote that was like, love doesn't end, you either truly loved to begin with or you never did. And to be honest, I really don't agree with this sentiment. I think that love dies, and it's a painful, painful thing. And I can say that with surety because I grew up and I loved my father, and then he abused me and my sister, and the love died. I mourned it after the situation what ended, in that sense, after I was safe in a way and free, and I felt the guilt of it, of no longer loving my parent, and over time I came to the point where it was gone, and that abuse of love and trust meant that my heart was there broken and the love is gone, and for a while I felt guilty about that. And then I came to a place where I sort of just accepted that that was the case and moved on from that. I went through stages of coming to the point realising where family is more than just whom you share blood with and all that sort of process. So I really don't agree with the idea that love cannot die. I think it can. It might be extreme circumstances, for sure. Those are extreme circumstances. But in that situation, for me at least, the abuse of love and trust meant the end of love for that person. And I was wondering whether or not this had sort of jaded my outlook a little bit, because I was thinking about it, how love gets so twisted. And I don't know if it's modern society, I don't know. It feels a bit like it might be. And then there's a sort of spiritual path that you have to love everybody. And I don't agree with that either. And this was blocking me from engaging with the card, with the energy of love, about looking at how we express love and feel love, and love for ourselves as well as others, and all the forms of love aforementioned. So once I got past that and started thinking in broader terms, I wrote this piece, and I wanted to talk about that then. So love is darkness. It does not require sight. I think a lot of what is called love is so superficial that it's sort of based on how it looks. We expect love to look a certain way, to feel a certain way, to be a certain way, to change our life a certain way, and that's not always the case. Sometimes love lifts us and sometimes it breaks us, and that's just part and parcel of the balance of all things. And of course people seem to want to express love in only positive terms, and that was where I was hitting a bit of a roadblock as well, because this idea that love is only a positive force, that there's no negative side of it, doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't feel balanced to me. It sort of felt like people were afraid of the negative side of it, which is something that we've all been through, or at least I think most of us have been through a situation where we have loved freely and ended up hurt because of it. Usually it's our first real falling into love, and the phrase "the first cut is the deepest" from the song about love is probably so accurate, because it's the first time we've ever fell in love, that we don't know what we're doing, and we don't have boundaries, and we don't even think to protect ourselves, and inevitably somebody gets hurt. And I was thinking about this in relation to my own experiences through life. The first person that I fell, well, there were two really, but the first person I really, really fell for in a way that was just without limit and without boundary, and I always just didn't share my spiritual beliefs. He was Christian and he couldn't get over it, and he couldn't get over me falling apart. So in the end, when I needed him most, he abandoned me, gave up on me, however you want to put it. And that smarted for a long, long time. And it got to the point where you get to the point where you're thinking, do you even show someone who you are completely? And I guess that then becomes the point where when you finally trust somebody again enough to show them all your dark and ugly parts, if you like, then that becomes a more grounded and strong form of love. That's romantic love, obviously. It brought into context the thought for me that if you can't handle me at my worst, you sure as hell don't deserve me at my best, which is supposedly a quote by Marilyn Monroe. And I think that then plays back into self-love, that you deserve to be loved for every part of who you are. The bits which aren't so happy, happy, joy, joy, the darker bits of yourself, the broken bits of yourself, however you want to see that, and you have to love those parts of yourself as well, which is often a really, really difficult thing to grasp, to get your head around, and then to start doing. We all have parts of ourselves which we don't like, and it becomes a balance of what are the things that I honestly feel that are detrimental to myself that I need to improve through hard work or meditation or spiritual sort of searching or mundane activities which I can engage in, whatever they may be. Is it on an emotional, mental level where you need counselling? Is it on a physical level where you need exercise? It's whatever. But it gets to the point where, are those things that are actually in need of work, or are those just part and parcel of who you are? And that's something that each individual has to really deeply soul search about themselves, because nobody else can tell you, and someone else loving you isn't going to mean that you are fully healed within yourself. That's something else I've seen that is expressed in modern society, that once you have this perfect relationship, you are somehow healed, and it's really not helpful, because the only person who can truly love you and heal you is yourself. And that's why the first line is, love is darkness, it does not require sight. It's not about these superficial things, these expectations of what love is supposed to be on a superficial level. It's not about how necessarily a person looks. That's attraction, and that's a different aspect, and we all have things that we find attractive, but love itself, I honestly believe, is blind, because it's not completely ignoring those things, it's the realization that those things really don't count for shit at the end of the day. That people grow old together, people grow old, put weight on, whatever, and those things don't matter in sight of what love really is for one another. And in terms of friendship, it should have nothing to do with it. In terms of animals loving us, animals don't care what you look like. And that's, why a lot of people sort of say, I prefer my animal to partners, because that's just love. It's not about superficial sort of traits, I guess. It's more about a relationship and interacting, and as long as you love them and look after them, and even sometimes when people don't, they still love their owner. Love is light, it illuminates from within. Love often illuminates in ways that we don't expect. It illuminates who we are, who we want to be, and who we want to evolve into, perhaps. It sort of highlights everything, flaws and good points, and to the point where we get to the point where we have to adapt and change if that's what we really want to do for ourselves, or that we accept who we are, flaws and all, in that illumination. Love can make us feel lighter in another context as well. It can bring happiness, and accepting that happiness for what it is, which to me, to be honest, is a series of moments. The idea that you fall in love and that's it, you're happy, is the idea of happy ever after is probably the biggest lie there is, and it is fed to us everywhere. Pick somewhere, you know, you'll find that idea is broadcast to us at the minute we find our one true love, that's it, and it's happy and easy, and yeah, it's just not. It's hard work and requires a lot of levels of different compassion, respect, and often, which is almost never mentioned, self-sacrifice in all forms of love. Parents sacrifice things for their children because they love them. Time, money, whatever it might be. Or at least I know good parents that do. We can sacrifice on all forms of love, you know. We might love ourselves enough to sacrifice certain impulses, which we know are damaging to ourselves. We might love our partner enough to compromise and balance and work together. It's interesting, the notion of sacrifice within love. It's almost, it's almost never really addressed in realistic terms anyway, because the idea of the over-romantic, passionate self-sacrifice is hugely romantic and but the sort of everyday sacrifice is often largely ignored. Love is natural and flows from earth, tree and sky. Love is a universal energy. Love of the world, love of nature, love of the trees and the sky, and everything that sort of makes us feel connected to our witchy self or pagan self or howsoever we feel. It's probably one of the truest, simplest, most unique and innocent forms of love. We don't really expect anything of nature in order to love it. We observe it in its beauty. This candle's going mad. I'm just watching it, sorry, it's fantastic. Candles from Lady Jane's Bewitchery, by the way. We watch nature in its glory, in its cycles, and we fall in love with it. And we don't really expect it to be anything else other than what it is. And we watch the sky and the incredible glory of its different colours and phases and cycles again, and we fall in love with it. And It's an incredibly pure form of love. It's why a lot of us become involved in environmental issues and trying our very utmost in terms of what we can do to help the planet and get called hippies and things. Love is astral, it is home amongst the stars. Love is that eternal force. This is one of these subjects which I'm always a bit like, yeah, but the problem with that is so there's been a lot recently about the idea of spiritual love being eternal and the love of God and Goddess being eternal and all enveloping, and that's fine, but it kind of gets portrayed in a sense whereby I think we miss something, because the idea of the fact that we are universally loved by God and Goddess, Divine Spirit, however you embrace it, sort of for some people it becomes an excuse. I'm loved anyway, so what does it matter, sort of thing, and to the stopping of self-betterment, to the engaging in the petty, to in some extreme cases, really terrible behaviour against other human beings. You know, the phrase, shoot them all and let God sort them out, sort of echoes into that, as long as I repent. And I've never felt comfortable with no accountability in the eyes of the divine. And I'm hesitant to even talk about it, because part of me is like, okay, I'm not in the camp of the Christian, obviously, whereby that if you behave badly in this life then you're going to hell and you're going to be punished. I think moreover it comes into my feeling on the matter that you are held to account for your life, for your choices and for your decisions, but for me it's in terms of rebirth and how many times you're going to have to be reborn to keep learning the same lessons so your soul can evolve, I guess. So yes, the divine is all loving, but does that make them all approving? I don't think so. I mean, love and approval are obviously not the same thing, but as I said, you know, my love for my father died. It's not there anymore, and I don't mourn its loss anymore. I did, but I am a better person for letting that go. I am more whole in myself for letting that go. I am not a victim because I let that go, and all the rest of it. Also, with my relationship with the Morrigan, obviously, she's a goddess that will kick your ass. She will test you. And if you do something, or you carry on in behaviour and she gets annoyed at you, you're going to know. Now, does that come from a place of love? Sure. But it's not, oh, love is universal, so it's all going to be fine. I just don't feel like that at all. I think that we are supposed to be holding ourselves accountable. We are supposed to be trying to improve through whatever means we can. At least, you know, that's how I feel about it. Like, spirituality is us trying to improve ourselves, to enlighten ourselves, to seek. And I don't know, to be worthy of such divine love. Not to put ourselves down and say that we're not, but just to try and become more than we are. And I guess that's the reciprocated form of the divine love. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's the symbiosis that is often missing. That if we are to be so loved by our divine, then we need to be so loving in return and not engage in behaviours and actions to our own detriment and to the detriment of those that divinely love us. Maybe that's where I'm trying to get at, that this sort of symbiotic relationship, this eternal loop needs to exist. I think that's going to be a good place to stop. I think that's helped me immensely. I think that's what I needed to realise and put out there. Many blessings.